I know that in the past year, there have been so many new revelations about Donald Trump's criminality, and so many times that we felt like, here we go, he's definitely going down, that it's all beginning to take on a boy who cried wolf quality. Like we're all Homer Simpson thinking we're about to finally get that potato chip.
Don't! Don't! This time, don't!
But in this video, I want to argue that new emails unearthed by the Detroit News truly are a bombshell that could lead to a fresh set of indictments for Trump and really major legal trouble. So let's quickly break down what the fake electors scheme was, what we already know about it, and what this new information is, and why it's so dangerous for Donald Trump. Let's start first with the Electoral College and the fake electors scheme. We'll let our friends at NBC take us very quickly through the basics.
You probably know how a presidential election works. Voters in all 50 states head to the polls to choose who they want as president. If enough voters back a certain candidate, that candidate gets Electoral College votes from that state. Members of the Electoral College pick it up from there. Those members, called Electors, are selected by state parties months before Election Day. After every presidential election in December, each state gathers together electors from whichever party won the popular vote in that state. Those folks meet and send an official certificate to the National Archives and to Congress.
All usually pretty straightforward and pretty ceremonial. But in 2020, something very different happened.
The former president and his allies got to work convincing loyalists in 7 states that they should back Republican electors in key battlegrounds won by the Democrat in the race, Joe Biden. Some of those so-called fake electors showed up at state capitals where the real electors were meeting. They even created phony certificates like the ones you see here. The thinking seemed to be that then VP Mike Pence could grant Mr. Trump the disputed electoral votes or send the issue back to the states, opening the door to keeping Mr. Trump in power.
One of the states where the scheme went the furthest was Michigan. So let's talk about number 2. What do we already know about what went down in Michigan and what crimes have already been charged? The answer is we know a lot, and the Attorney General, Dana Nessel, has been very busy following up on it.
We allege that 16 Michigan residents met covertly in the basement of Michigan GOP headquarters and knowingly and of their own volition signed their names to multiple certificates stating that they were the duly elected and qualified electors for President and Vice President of the United States of America for the state of Michigan. That was a lie.
Last week, things began to heat up as new recordings emerged of Ken Chesbrough. You may recall that he is a former Trump attorney who was right in the middle of things and working directly for Donald Trump. And he's already taken a plea deal in the Georgia election interference case, and he's been talking to prosecutors there. And that's really significant. Here's a clip from an interview I did with Barb McQuaid, a former U.S. attorney and a legal analyst for NBC News and MSNBC. By the way, because of her contract with those news organizations, I'm not showing her on camera here. But here's why, according to her, Ken Chesbrough's testimony is so significant.
Chesbrough is the architect of the fake electors scheme. He wrote some memos that said, I think the likelihood of this theory actually prevailing will fail is very low, but it will be good for us politically. It will buy us time. It will control the public narrative. And so those admissions that they knew that this was not a legitimate good faith claim of election fraud, but was instead a strategy to unlawfully hold on to office, I think could be really powerful testimony against all the higher ups. This could cause John Eastman to flip, who was a lawyer of Trump's. It could cause Giuliani to flip, and it could be really incriminating. I think the testimony of Chesbrough at trial against Donald Trump can be really powerful.
And that's why the new recordings of Chesbrough talking to Michigan investigators last week were also really significant.
CNN has obtained exclusive recordings that reveal a chaotic last-ditch effort by former President Trump's campaign to get fake elector ballots to D.C.
In those new recordings, we learn a stunning amount of detail about the scheme and also the simple fact that Ken Chesbrough is now directly cooperating with Michigan investigators.
The plan involved a haphazard chain of messengers, staffers for 2 sitting Republican members of Congress, and talk of even chartering a private jet. All of this to ensure the fake ballots from Michigan and Wisconsin got to the Capitol in time for the Electoral College certification on January 6, 2021. Emails and recordings show new context in the dizzying scope of the unsuccessful fake electors plot.
Now we're getting the full picture.
This is a high-level decision to get the Michigan
and Wisconsin votes there.
Here's Chesbrough again telling Michigan prosecutors basically that in his view, he was thrown under the bus.
I have the three top campaign lawyers in interviews with Congress claim they pulled out of this when in fact they were day by day coordinating the efforts of more than a dozen people with the GOP and with the Trump campaign. That's what really rankles.
That's probably why he's now cooperating with criminal prosecutors in Michigan, Wisconsin, and other key states where they tried to pull this off.
And that gets us to the final set of new revelations. What the Detroit News has unearthed is internal campaign emails that show the Trump campaign directly organized the fake electors scheme, that they organized transporting the fake certificates, that they knew that this was all bogus, and that these plans were being directed from the very highest levels of the Trump campaign. And by the way, we also know that Ken Chesbrough believes that he's getting thrown under the bus. What Fani Willis, the Georgia prosecutor, has charged there is a conspiracy. That's what Donald Trump was indicted for. And now we have a whole other state with tons of evidence coming out supporting the exact same thing, that there was a criminal conspiracy that Donald Trump was directly involved in. There is reason to believe that Donald Trump and all of his henchmen are now on the verge of being charged with a whole new set of crimes in yet another state. So yes, I do think this is a big deal, and I think we may eventually get to eat this potato chip.